First contact with the Tamers. Dr. Zixtal's appendages trembled as she reviewed the footage for the 100th time. The recording showed a human female casually approaching what her database identified as a Panthera tigris, one of Earth's apex predators. The massive striped creature, weighing over 200 kilograms and armed with razor-sharp claws and teeth that could crush bones, didn't attack. Instead, it rubbed its head against the human's hand like a domesticated pet. "Impossible," she whispered, her vocal sacs vibrating in disbelief. As the Galactic Union's leading xenozoologist, she had studied dangerous creatures across 1,000 worlds. Nothing in her centuries of research had prepared her for this. The human in the footage, a wildlife sanctuary worker named Sarah Chen, proceeded to examine the tiger's injured paw. The predator remained calm, even as she cleaned and bandaged the wound. More shocking still was the obvious affection between them. The tiger's body language showed trust, not just tolerance. Another recording showed different humans working with wolves, eagles, and even marine predators called orcas. Each demonstration defied everything the scientific community knew about apex predators. These weren't just trained behaviors. These were genuine relationships. Director Valon needs to see this immediately, Zixtal decided, gathering her research materials. The implications were staggering. Humanity hadn't just survived on their Deathworld. They'd formed partnerships with its most dangerous inhabitants. The journey to the Galactic Science Council's headquarters gave Zixtal time to organize her thoughts. Her species, the Vexri, had evolved on a world where any contact with wildlife meant certain death. The very concept of approaching predators voluntarily seemed like madness. Director Valon's reaction to her presentation matched her own initial disbelief. His crystalline form flickered with skepticism as he reviewed the data. "These recordings must be fabricated," he insisted. "No sentient species would risk such close contact with apex predators. The mortality rate alone." "The mortality rate is surprisingly low," Zixtal interrupted, her excitement overwhelming proper protocol. "Humans have been developing these relationships for thousands of years. They call it animal husbandry and wildlife conservation. They don't just survive alongside these creatures, they protect them." She played another recording, this one showing a human diving into turbulent waters to free a trapped whale. The massive marine creature could have killed them with a single movement, yet it remained calm as the human cut away entangling nets. "Fascinating," Valon admitted, his crystalline structure pulsing with interest. "But what possible advantage could such relationships provide?" "The energy expenditure alone." "That's just it," Zixtal said, pulling up her analysis. "Humans have historically used these relationships to their advantage. The predators they called dogs helped them hunt. Their horses provided transportation. They've even trained birds of prey to assist in hunting. But what's most remarkable is that these relationships have evolved beyond mere utility." She showed more footage. Humans rehabilitating injured predators, raising orphaned cubs, and reintroducing them to the wild. They do this purely for the benefit of the animals themselves. They call it conservation. Valon's skepticism had transformed into genuine curiosity. "You're suggesting we send a research team?" "Better," Zixtal replied. "I'm suggesting we establish a formal exchange program. Humanity's ability to form bonds with dangerous creatures could revolutionize how we approach wildlife management across the galaxy. Imagine being able to study dangerous species up close, to understand them without the barriers of traditional observation methods." "The risks are manageable," she insisted. "Humans have developed extensive safety protocols. They understand these creatures better than anyone in the galaxy. They could teach us." Valon was quiet for a long moment, his crystalline form shifting through various thoughtful patterns. Finally, he spoke. "Draft a proposal. But be careful in how you present this. Many council members still view Earth as a barbaric death world. Suggesting we learn from them, especially about something as controversial as wildlife interaction." "With respect, Director, that's exactly why we must do this." Humanity has achieved something remarkable. They've turned what we see as a survival horror scenario into a cooperative relationship with their world's most dangerous inhabitants. That's not barbaric, it's revolutionary. The director's form flickered in agreement. Very well. But start small. Perhaps a pilot program. Actually, Zixtel said, pulling up one final recording, I've already made contact with a facility called the Global Wildlife Conservation Center. They've offered to host a small team of cynozoologists for an initial study period. We could have boots, or in my case, appendages, on the ground within a standard month. As she left the director's office, Zixtel felt her skin ripple with excitement. Soon, she would see these human-animal tamers in person. Soon, she would understand how they had achieved what her people had long thought impossible: friendship with the predators of a Deathworld. Little did she know that this was just the beginning of a journey that would challenge everything the galaxy thought it knew about humans, animals, and the bonds between them. The Beast Masters, the diplomatic incident that brought Zixtel's research to a crisis point, began, as such things often do, with a misunderstanding. The Galactic Union's ambassador to Earth had insisted on visiting a wildlife sanctuary without proper clearance or preparation. The resulting chaos had sent ripples through both human and alien media networks. They were playing with them. Ambassador Krellix's tentacles writhed in agitation as he addressed the emergency council meeting. The humans were allowing juvenile members of their species to interact with predators. It's unconscionable. Zixtel watched the footage from the incident. The scene showed a supervised educational program where children were learning to handle rehabilitated raptors. What the ambassador saw as reckless endangerment was, in fact, a carefully controlled learning environment. If I may, Sarah Chen's hologram flickered to life in the council chamber. The wildlife sanctuary worker had become humanity's unofficial representative in these matters. What you witnessed was our youth conservation program. Every interaction is carefully monitored, and the birds are specially trained. Another council member's bioluminescent patterns flickered with skepticism. These are wild creatures, not machines to be programmed. Sarah smiled, a gesture that still made some council members uncomfortable. Perhaps a demonstration would be more convincing than an explanation. I'd like to invite a small delegation to observe our training methods firsthand. That's how Zixtel found herself standing in an open field on Earth, her protective suit's sensors struggling to process the overwhelming input of a Deathworld's ecosystem. Beside her, Sarah Chen stood completely exposed to the environment, looking entirely too relaxed for someone about to summon an apex predator. Watch carefully, Sarah said, raising a curious device to her lips. The whistle she blew made no sound that Zixtel could detect, but the response was immediate. A dark shape detached itself from the distant tree line, moving with impossible speed. Several delegation members retreated in panic as the wolf appeared, its powerful form streaking across the field. But instead of attacking, it stopped precisely at Sarah's side, sitting with military precision. This is Maya, Sarah introduced, as if presenting a colleague rather than a predator. She's one of our ambassador animals, helping us demonstrate the principles of positive reinforcement training. What followed was a display that had the alien scientists questioning their understanding of predator psychology. Maya responded to subtle hand signals, verbal commands, and even performed complex problem-solving tasks. But most remarkable was her obvious enthusiasm. This wasn't forced compliance, but willing cooperation. The key, Sarah explained while Maya demonstrated scent tracking, isn't dominance or control. It's partnership. We work with their natural instincts and intelligence, not against them. But how do you prevent them from reverting to aggressive behaviors? An Exilian observer asked, their crystalline form vibrating with nervous energy. Sarah's expression grew serious. We don't prevent anything. Maya is still very much a wolf, with all her natural instincts intact. What we've done is build trust and understanding. She chooses to work with us. The demonstration continued with other species, a rescued mountain lion showing remarkable gentleness during medical procedures, eagles performing precision flights to assist in conservation surveys, and even a group of dolphins collaborating with human researchers to study ocean ecosystems. What you're seeing, Zixtal realized, her scientific excitement overwhelming her instinctive fear, isn't just training. It's genuine communication across species barriers. Exactly, Sarah beamed. Every animal has its own personality, its own way of seeing the world. Our job is to learn their language, not force them to learn ours. The delegation's report would later describe this as a paradigm shift in xenobiology. Humanity hadn't conquered or subdued Earth's dangerous creatures. They had befriended them, learned from them, and built a relationship of mutual respect. As the demonstration concluded, a junior researcher asked the question that had been bothering many of them. But why take the risk? Surely mechanical solutions would be safer. Sarah knelt beside Maya, who was now lounging contentedly in the grass. Because these aren't just resources to be managed or problems to be solved. They're living beings who share our world. By learning to communicate with them, we don't just help them, we expand our own understanding of life itself. The wolf's ears perked up at a distant sound, and Sarah nodded in understanding. Maya's pack is calling. Would you like to see how we work with the entire family group? The delegation's nervous shuffling was answered by Maya's surprisingly gentle demeanor as she waited for them to gather their courage. One by one, the alien scientists found themselves drawn forward by curiosity stronger than fear. Zixtal made a note in her research log. Humans have not merely survived their Deathworld. They have turned its greatest challenges into their greatest allies. The implications for galactic wildlife conservation are beyond calculation. As they followed Sarah and Maya toward the wolf pack's territory, Zixtal couldn't help but wonder, what other surprises did humanity's beastmasters have in store for them? Trial by Fang and Claw. The emergency call came from Proxima Colony at the worst possible time. Zixtal was in the middle of presenting her preliminary findings on human-animal interactions to the Galactic Science Council when her communications implant chimed with the urgent message. The colony's administrator appeared as a flickering hologram, their normally iridescent scales dulled with stress. We need the humans. Now, the problem, as it turned out, was both simple and terrifying. A cargo ship had crashed on the colony's agricultural moon, releasing its cargo of Vajrax, genetically engineered creatures designed for waste processing. In the moon's oxygen-rich atmosphere, the Vajrax had grown to enormous size and begun reproducing exponentially. Our conventional containment methods have failed, the administrator reported, while footage showed massive bear-sized creatures tearing through the colony's crop fields. The artificial wildlife barriers aren't stopping them, and our stun weapons just make them angry. Sarah Chen studied the footage with an intensity that Zixtal had come to recognize. Those movement patterns, they're pack hunters, aren't they? Yes, the administrator confirmed. They're coordinating their attacks, learning from each encounter. We've had to evacuate 3 settlements already. Sarah turned to her team, a group of specialized wildlife handlers who had been working with the Galactic Union's Xenobiology Division. This is exactly the kind of situation we've been training for. Dr. Zixtal, would your council be interested in a practical demonstration of Earth's wildlife management techniques? 48 hours later, Zixtal watched in amazement as human handlers unloaded their equipment from a rapid response shuttle. Instead of the expected arsenal of weapons, they'd brought an array of tools she didn't recognize, along with several containers marked with biohazard symbols. Pheromone compounds, explained Dr. Marcus Rodriguez, the team's lead biochemist. We've synthesized them based on the Vajrax's genetic profile. But the real key to this operation isn't in any of these containers. As if on cue, another shuttle landed. The cargo doors opened to reveal what the humans had really brought. A pack of earth wolves, several trained raptors, and most surprisingly, a team of border collies. The wolves understand pack dynamics better than any computer model, Sarah explained while checking her equipment. The raptors give us aerial reconnaissance, and the border collies, well, You're about to see why they're considered the ultimate herding specialists. The plan seemed absurd to the colonial authorities, using Earth predators to combat the Vajrax invasion. But as Zixtal observed the operation unfold, she began to understand the brilliant complexity of the human approach. The border collies, displaying an intelligence that seemed almost supernatural, began herding the scattered Vajrax into larger groups. The wolves, coordinating with their human handlers, through a series of hand signals and whistles, contained the herds from the flanks. Meanwhile, the raptors provided real-time aerial updates, allowing the team to track and respond to Vajrax movements across the complex terrain. They're not just following commands, Zixtal realized, watching the seamless cooperation between species. They're actively problem-solving together. Sarah nodded while coordinating with her team. Each species brings its own strengths to the table. The dogs understand herding instincts better than we ever could. The wolves know pack psychology from the inside. We're just providing direction and strategy. The heart of the pack. Following the successful Vajrax containment operation, the Galactic Science Council demanded answers. How had humans achieved such profound cooperation with Earth's predators? The question led Zixtal and a team of xenopsychologists to a remote wildlife rehabilitation center in what humans called the Pacific Northwest. Rain fell steadily from gray skies as they watched Emma Torres, a veteran wildlife rehabilitator, work with an injured grizzly bear. The massive predator, easily capable of tearing through their protective barriers, lay calmly as she treated its wounded paw. "You're doing great, old friend," Emma murmured, her voice soft but clear. The bear, despite its obvious discomfort, remained still. More remarkably, it maintained eye contact with her, showing what the xenopsychologist's instruments registered as concern rather than aggression. "There's something we're missing," Dr. Kavoth, the lead xenopsychologist, admitted. His crystalline form pulsed with frustrated curiosity. "The biochemical markers don't explain this level of cooperation. Even accounting for learned behavior patterns, this shouldn't be possible." Emma finished bandaging the bear's paw and stepped back, allowing it to examine her work. The bear sniffed the bandage, looked at her with what seemed like gratitude, and slowly ambled back to its enclosure. "You're looking for the wrong thing," she said, cleaning her equipment. "This isn't about biochemistry or behavior modification. It's about relationship." "Please elaborate," Zixtal encouraged, noting how the other animals in the sanctuary responded to Emma's presence. Even the most recently rescued creatures showed a marked decrease in stress hormones when she approached. Emma considered for a moment. "Humans have something that seems to be unique among spacefaring species. We naturally empathize with other creatures. We look at an animal and don't just see a set of behaviors or biological responses. We see a being with thoughts, feelings, and a personality." "But that's precisely what makes no scientific sense," Kavoth objected. "You're attributing complex emotional states to non-sapient creatures. Are you sure they're non-sapient?" Emma challenged. She led them to an observation area overlooking several enclosures. "Watch this." They observed as sanctuary staff conducted various enrichment activities. Ravens solved complex puzzles to obtain treats, demonstrating tool use and planning. Wolves cooperated to complete tasks that required multiple steps, showing clear division of labor. Even the bears displayed remarkable problem-solving abilities. "Intelligence comes in many forms," Emma explained. "Humans figured this out a long time ago. We stopped asking if animals could think like us and started asking how they think like themselves." The discussion was interrupted by an alert from the sanctuary's perimeter sensors. A young wolf, not part of their rehabilitation program, had been spotted with a severe injury. What followed was a masterclass in what Emma called trust-based intervention. Instead of attempting to trap or sedate the wolf from a distance, Emma approached slowly, armed with nothing but her presence and soft words. The xenopsychologist's instruments recorded something extraordinary. Both Emma and the wolf showed synchronized hormone patterns indicating mutual trust development. This is what we mean by emotional intelligence, she explained later after successfully bringing the injured wolf to their medical facility. We can read their emotional states, and they can read ours. It's a two-way communication that goes deeper than words. The implications stunned the xenopsychology team. Humans weren't just good animal handlers. They possessed an almost supernatural ability to form emotional bonds with other species. More incredibly, the animals responded in kind, developing emotional attachments that defied conventional understanding of predator-prey relationships. But how did this ability develop? Kavoth wondered aloud. What evolutionary pressure could have produced such an unusual trait? Emma smiled while checking on the newly treated wolf. Maybe it wasn't pressure at all. Maybe it was opportunity. Humans have always been creatures of community. We seek connections, try to understand others, want to help. We extended that same instinct to the animals around us. And they responded, Zixtal realized. Over generations, they learned to trust you, to communicate with you, to love us, Emma completed the thought. And we learned to love them back. That's the real secret, not technique or training, but genuine affection and respect. The xenopsychologists struggled with this concept. Love, as humans defined it, was considered a higher emotional function, typically reserved for sapient species. The idea that it could form the basis of interspecies relationships challenged their most fundamental assumptions about consciousness and intelligence. Yet the evidence was undeniable. In enclosure after enclosure, they saw animals displaying clear emotional bonds, not just with their human caretakers, but with each other across species lines. The sanctuary wasn't just a rehabilitation center. It was a community of different species, united by their connections to their human caretakers. Perhaps, Zixtal noted in her report, we have been asking the wrong questions. Instead of wondering how humans tamed Earth's predators, we should have been asking how they opened their hearts wide enough to embrace them as family. Nature's Dance. 5 years after the first contact with Earth's animal handlers, the Galactic Union gathered for an unprecedented event. The Great Hall of Harmony, typically reserved for major diplomatic functions, had been temporarily transformed into something humanity called a demonstration arena. Zixtal, now the head of the newly formed Interspecies Communication Division, watched as Sarah Chen stepped into the center of the arena. With her came an assembly of Earth's most impressive predators: wolves, big cats, birds of prey, and even a pair of reformed Vaseracs from the Proxima incident. The assembled alien dignitaries murmured nervously, their various biological and mechanical sensing organs tracking every movement of the Earth creatures. But their anxiety turned to amazement as Sarah began what she called the dance. Without words or obvious signals, the assembled animals moved in perfect harmony. Wolves weaved between the legs of the Vaseracs, which had now become valuable allies in ecological management. Eagles soared in precise formations overhead, while big cats demonstrated their incredible agility and restraint. What you're witnessing, Sarah announced to the stunned audience, isn't just a performance. This is the future of galactic wildlife management. The demonstration was more than mere spectacle. It was the graduation ceremony for the first class of alien students from Earth's Interspecies Communication Academy. Among them were beings from worlds that had long considered their wildlife to be unmanageable threats. An Exilian crystal form floated forward, accompanied by what the audience recognized as a notorious predator from their homeworld, a creature that had previously been considered impossible to approach, let alone work with. Before studying with humans, the Nexilian chimed, their crystalline surface reflecting the lights. We thought these beings were mindless killing machines. Now we understand they are partners in maintaining our world's ecological balance. One by one, graduates demonstrated their newly developed abilities to work with creatures that their species had feared for generations. Each success story reinforced the revolutionary nature of humanity's approach. The key, Emma Torres explained to the assembled dignitaries, was teaching our students to open themselves to emotional connections. Many species in the galaxy have amazing technological achievements, But humans specialize in building bridges, not of metal or energy, but of understanding and trust. The implications extended far beyond wildlife management. Worlds that had been considered too dangerous for colonization were being reevaluated. Species thought to be impossible to study were yielding new insights. The galaxy itself seemed to be opening up in ways previously unimaginable. But perhaps most importantly, Zixtal added, addressing the assembly, "We're learning that intelligence and consciousness exist in forms we never recognized before. Humanity hasn't just taught us to handle dangerous creatures. They've taught us to see the rich tapestry of minds that share our galaxy." The ceremony concluded with an announcement that would have been unthinkable just a few years earlier: the establishment of the Galactic Wildlife Conservation Network. This ambitious project would combine human emotional intelligence with alien technology to protect and study species across the galaxy. As the dignitaries filed out, still buzzing with excitement and plans, Sarah found herself standing with Zixtal near one of the Vezrax. The creature, once considered a dangerous pest, gently nuzzled Sarah's hand. "You know," Sarah mused, "when we first started reaching for the stars, we thought we'd find aliens who would be amazed by our technology, our culture, our achievements. Instead, it turns out our greatest contribution to galactic society is something we barely thought about: our ability to make friends with the creatures everyone else fears." Zixtal's appendages waved in agreement. "Your species has shown us that being advanced doesn't always mean having the most powerful technology or the most complex social structures. Sometimes it means having the wisdom to see the value in other forms of life and the courage to reach out to them." As if to emphasize the point, an eagle landed on Sarah's outstretched arm, followed by a wolf sitting calmly at her feet. The assembled animals, from Earth and beyond, created a living tableau of interspecies harmony that would have seemed impossible just a few years ago. "The galaxy is full of wonders," Sarah said, smiling at her assembled animal friends. "We just needed to learn how to see them with our hearts as well as our eyes." In the years that followed, humanity's beastmasters would continue to reshape galactic society's relationship with wildlife. Their unique gift for forming bonds with other species became one of their most valued contributions to the galactic community. And in teaching others to connect with the creatures they once feared, humans helped create a more harmonious galaxy, one relationship at a time.